Hawaii? I was thinking of going there. What movie is that from? I'll give you a clue. It's one of my favorite movies. That doesn't really help you because you don't know my favorite movies, but good luck. Try to get it. Hi, everyone. I am Paul Bartholomew. This is I Want to Hold Your Band, and today we talk with it's just me. I don't know. My friend Larry. Right, Larry? He's quiet today. I talk with actor Spencer Garrett. You know him from a bazillion things. Recently, that really fun show on Netflix, The Residents, that HBO show Winning Time. He has this great scene in that Quentin Tarantino film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anyway, he was, as he said, born in the wrong era, and yet his musical tastes are everywhere. He's a genuine, true music lover. So even though he feels from a different time, he loves music of all sorts, and we talk all about that, which is so fun. The Ink Spots, Dire Straits, Tom Waits, Steve Earle. I loved talking with Spencer. He is just a wonderful man and just a joy to talk to. As always, the links for the songs are in the episode description. So without further ado, I give you the charming, old school, but new school, Spencer Garrett. First piece of music, artist, album that you remember coming into your life.
First of all, I am talking about being an old. I feel like I was born in the wrong century. I was born in the wrong era. I grew up in a house. My folks split when I was very young, but my dad was a very accomplished musician, played trumpet, piano, and so when I would be with him, it was Dexter Gordon and Ben Webster and Miles Davis and really jazz-oriented stuff. Frank Sinatra and Mel Torme, like very heavy, jazz, and that's my memory of being with my dad as a kid. And then on my mom's side, she's an actor and did a lot of musical theater and Broadway, and so in the house that I grew up in, between Los Angeles and New York, back and forth, it was Broadway show tunes. A lot of Barbra Streisand and also like Judy Collins and stuff like that. It was like very much rooted in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. I remember driving in the car with, an 8-track of Neil Diamond or Barbra Streisand. And so my earliest memory probably would be listening to Peter Pan. My mom was Wendy in Peter Pan with Mary Martin on Broadway. And so that's my earliest memory of hearing that music, and it was always Broadway and the albums going on the turntable and the crackle and listening to Broadway show tunes.
Wait, so let me get a picture. So your parents divorced when you were younger. When you say between New York and L.A., was your dad in...
My dad was in L.A., and then my mom would go to New York and do a play or film or whatever, and we'd go there, or she would get a show in regional theater when we'd be on the road. So we would be in Atlanta, she'd be doing The Unsinkable Molly Brown, or she'd be doing some musical in Minneapolis. And so I spent a lot of time in green rooms and backstages of theaters and theatrical houses growing up.
Was it just you, or do you have a sibling?
Just me. Yeah, just me. So, one of my early memories is being backstage on opening night of Company with my mom and George Firth, who wrote Company, in Elaine Stritch's dressing room. And I want to say like 1970, 71, something like that. So I'm 7 years old. I'm 6 years old, 7 years old. So I was around those kind of people all the time. I mean, I was around, show people. People where they were doing their makeup, and there was always music playing. I remember one summer she did South Pacific at Jones Beach Theater out on Long Island with Guy Lombardo Orchestra playing. So that's all I knew. So my musical tastes from the very beginning were rooted in Broadway and theater. And then from my dad, it was jazz and blues. And
do you remember their systems, the record players, or where they were in their house, in their living room?
Oh, yeah. The house, I grew up on the west side here. I grew up in Brentwood, Santa Monica, and we had my mom in our house growing up here. We had a reel-to-reel system, a TIAC, reel-to-reel. So she had a lot of the music that was on those old tapes before cassettes. It was on this TIAC reel-to-reel thing. So we had that, and we had a record player. We had a turntable.
Now, how about your dad? How about his system? And
it was all vinyl, a great old turntable. And he wasn't into the technology of it so much, but he did have a great record collection. And like I said, he played the trumpet very well, and he played piano, played great jazz piano. And he was the guy that you would want at the cocktail party or the dinner party afterwards, when everybody's sitting around with their brandy, and he would sit down and everybody would gather around. And he was that guy. He could sight read, and he had an extraordinary repertoire just in his head. I mean, he didn't have to have sheet music. He could just sit and play anything.
I mean, was that his profession, or was he just
No,
really
he was
good at it?
he was a talent agent. He represented actors. He was a manager and an agent of actors. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, going back to the early 60s, he started there, and then he opened up his own talent agency. He played the trumpet. He was in the Korean War, and he was in the Navy band on a battleship. I think he lied about his age, and he was a very accomplished trumpet player in his teens, and then he lied about his age to get into the war because he wanted to get away from home. And he played in the Navy band, and then when he got out, went to college on the GI Bill, and then came out to L.A. and kind of paid his bills by kind of gigging around town in L.A.
God.
If you handed him a guitar, he would figure out how to play a song. Like he was just like he just had that gift.
You think
Just
that's what
had that
attracted,
knack.
what drew your parents together? Is that kind of?
I mean, allegedly,
Probably.
the story goes he was at a party. He was playing piano at a party, and my mom was there. And she sat down next to him, and he said, "What do you want to hear?" And she gave him a list of things. She said, "I'd like to sing so-and-so." She said, "Well, I don't sing in that key." And he transposed the songs. And so when I always say, Mom, why did you marry? Like they were oil and water. There was no world in which they belonged together. But thankfully I came out of it. So I'm happy about that. And so my mom always said, well, he played in my key. He played in my key. So he played in her key, and I think I may have been conceived a night or two later. So listen, music brings people together. I really got into collecting vinyl in, sort of in the mid-'70s. And then I really, really, really got into music a lot through this teacher. I had a wonderful teacher of mine. I went to high school in Maine, and one of my teachers there, when I was there when I was 15, 16, 17, and one of the teachers was a great influence on me, not just as a writer and an actor, but he had exquisite musical taste. And I credit him for turning me on to people like John Hyatt and NRBQ and just so much music. Van Morrison. I mean, a lot of my musical taste that I have now, I got from Malcolm, he was probably in his mid-20s as a teacher of mine when I was in Maine, and I was 16, 17. And this guy had already had such a fully formed sense of who he was in terms of his taste for music and stuff. So he was always a touchstone. He still is. He's still a touchstone for me. He's like, hey, have you heard? He sends out, I'm 35 years out of this high school in Maine, and he sends out a newsletter where he talks about, hey, I just went to a concert in Brunswick. And
what did he teach? What was his subject?
He was an English teacher, history teacher. He coached lacrosse and wrestling, and he was just a great teacher. But he had great musical taste. I think John Hyatt's kid went to Hyde. Cher's kid went to this is a school called Hyde in Maine where I went. Elijah Allman went there. So there was a lot of Michael McDonald's son went there. So there were a lot of music kids or sons of kids that were in the people that were in the music world that went there. And I think that was I think Malcolm, he loved it, that there was so much history there.
Do you remember the first piece of music that you bought for yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to say it was Crosby, Stills, Nash, CSN. It was that album. I think it was probably the first live concert that I remember going to as a teenager. My mom drove me and a buddy of mine to the Universal Amphitheater, dropped us off, and it was Seals and Crofts opening for CSN, and that was my first live show. And I was really into Crosby, Stills, Nash then, and that was probably about 76, 77, somewhere around there. CSN, they were a band from mid to late 60s, and so that album that came around, like I was saying, the late 70s, maybe even 80 or so. And I went back, I discovered this kind of genre of music.
Retrospectively, kind of.
Retrospectively, like Joni Mitchell and Dylan and all that stuff. I mean, I was late to the party. I was late to the party discovering music of my generation. I mean, like I grew up listening to jazz and Broadway and stuff. And as our friend Jay Hughley said, I grew up in a house of, it was James Taylor and Dan Fogelberg. And then when I got to high school and I got my first dose of Tom Waits, it kind of changed everything for me. I listen to everything. I really, really enjoy every genre of music. I'm not a big heavy metal guy, but I appreciate it.
Being an LA guy, where would you go to get
Licorice Pizza.
Really? In
Pizza.
In Sherman Oaks?
No, there was Licorice Pizza. I want to say it was around Wilshire and Bundy. So on the west side, around Brentwood, there was a Licorice Pizza, and then of course Tower Records. Yeah. The old Tower, the OG Tower Records.
So let's start first with one of your favorite artists that I'm not aware of, and you brought the record. Maybe you can grab it, which is the Ink Spots.
Yeah.
So I don't know from the Ink Spots. How did you come
Really?
to them? Yeah.
I want to say there was a wonderful actor. He's not acting anymore, but he's become a musician. Ramsey Midwood. He's a guy. I mean, obviously the Ink Spots are from a whole other era, but he was really into this old timey stuff, the wonderful harmonies, and he's the one that turned me onto the Ink Spots, probably in the mid '90s. And I just went down this rabbit hole of started collecting the Ink Spots. I just love the beautiful harmonies. And there's, I think, in the opening shot, or one of the opening scenes in Shawshank Redemption, it's Tim Robbins' wife. He comes home to discover
Yeah.
the very opening. He comes home to discover that she's having an affair, and it's the Ink Spots playing, and the song is "I don't want to set the world on fire," and just the way the lilting sounds and the way they harmonize with each other. And I was like, who are these guys? And so they became one of my all-time favorites.
All right, so we're going to play I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots. So here we go.
All right.
Oh, that
Isn't that gorgeous?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Just gorgeous.
And
Gorgeous.
I love the rhythm, the doom,
Yeah.
bum.
It's all like that. It's all, I mean, and you look at the titles of the songs. Coquette, Until the Real Thing Comes Along. You know that. Rock and Roll Rag. Now, this kind of predates rock and roll, actually, what we came to know as rock and roll, but it also kind of predates the doo-wop era.
Yeah.
It has that similar vibe to it.
So let's actually switch. It's you have it listed as one of your favorite albums, and it's a band that I know of, but that I would like to learn about because I don't really know them, which is The Replacements and the album All Shook Down from 1990.
Yeah.
So tell me how you came to them.
That was probably another one that when it first came out, I started to try to get into more kind of hard rock and stuff. When I was in college in North Carolina in 81, 82, I went to see The Replacements. There was a place called Cat's Cradle in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Went to see these guys. They blew my mind. And it was just around the same time as REM, when REM came onto the scene. And probably somebody that I've seen more than anybody else in concert is Elvis Costello.
Oh, really?
So that's when I got turned on to Elvis with one of my albums, Imperial Bedroom.
Yeah.
So I got turned on to The Replacements around that same time.
80, 81.
Probably I don't know, maybe a little bit later than that. Maybe mid 80s. I'm not sure when that album came out.
All Shook Down came in 1990.
90. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So around that same time, that's when I started to get into stuff that was a little bit more rocky.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with that album. Every song on there. I mean, those guys, they were just like raunchy, nasty, gritty. They were always kind of fighting with each other and breaking up, and you could feel you could smell the booze in the album. You could smell the pot and the booze and the anger, and they just made fantastic music. I mean, Paul Westerberg is just a great artist, and he had these fantastic musicians around him that were always. It was a very complicated band, but I loved them. So I want to say probably from around 84 to 90, that's when my tastes started to change, and I started to get more into rock and stuff.
Because previously it was that Crosby.
Yeah, it was my Crosby, Stills, Nash, and then, like I said, when I heard Tom Waits in high school in about 80, 81, that's when I really started to think, oh, there's a much bigger world out there that I need to explore.
Do you remember who threw Tom Waits at you? How it came to you?
Yeah, his name was Mackenzie Young, and he looked like a character in a Tom Waits song. So we were 16, 17 years old in this funky little high school in the woods in Maine, and Mackenzie wore like a pork pie hat and a vest, and yeah, he was just a real character. And he looked like John C. Reilly a little bit, the actor John C. Reilly. And he was just a character from another time, and he loved being that character. And who was listening to Tom Waits as a 16-year-old?
Right.
And it was Small Change and Closing Time and those early albums of Tom Waits. And I felt like a door had been opened the first time I listened to that. And then also, that's the first time I heard Songs in the Key of Life, I think came out around then. And so much music. And also the school that I was at, it was a school for performing arts. So we had a show that we toured with called America's Spirit. We played up and down the coast of New England. And so
what grade was it?
This was high school. This is 15, 16, 17 years old. And so that's when I started to get exposed to much more music than I'd been around as a teenager. So I went from Broadway and jazz, and then all of a sudden I get to this weird little school in the woods in Maine, and boom, it's Tom Waits and the Jam and the Clash, and just my world opened up in those few years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? Here's an artist I want to ask you about, Dire Straits. So how did you come to Dire Straits, and what is their significance to you?
Probably the same way everybody else did, through the MTV stuff.
Yeah.
And then I bought all the albums, Communique and Walk of Life, and there was a movie that came out, a wonderful Irish film called Cal, which everybody should see. It was a great, great movie about this young guy who gets caught up in the IRA and the troubles, the Irish troubles. And Mark Knopfler was doing a lot of film scores, and he did the score for the movie Cal and on the great movie Local Hero with Peter Riegert and Burt Lancaster. He was doing a lot of film scores, and so I got really, really into Mark Knopfler's guitar playing. So really, Dire Straits was kind of my window into Mark Knopfler and his guitar style and his film scoring, because then you had a lot of rock stars that started becoming, scoring films.
Scoring films, yeah.
So that was kind of my way into Dire Straits.
Okay, so we're going to listen to Water of Love. It's from the album self-titled Dire Straits from 1978. Here we go. Once again, an
Good
artist's earlier stuff,
Yeah.
I totally respond to.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what they got.
Oh yeah, this is the essence. This is the essence of their stuff. Yeah. That's what I love the best.
What a great song.
Yeah, yeah.
And that guitar.
Yeah, it's so sexy.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
sexy.
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Great. I'll go look for that album.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love it. Okay.
When I was making my list, you sent me homework to do, and I'm filling out this thing, and for every Elvis Imperial Bedroom, for every song that's on that record, I could think of 3 that are on Blood and Chocolate, or, it's like, so I could go down my Elvis Costello rabbit hole, my Jackson Browne rabbit hole. There's so many things, because I've seen so many live shows, Grateful Dead stuff. I think the Grateful Dead is a whole other podcast, is a whole other conversation. That's another band that I've seen live a lot back in the day.
Wow, interesting. I wouldn't have seen that.
I was a couple of college mates of mine took me to see the Dead for the first time when they came to Duke University, and they played in Cameron Indoor Stadium, and they offered me a little piece of paper to put under my tongue for the first time. And let's just say things got pretty weird that night. And somewhere out there in the world, there exists a bootleg tape, somebody bootlegging that Grateful Dead concert from 1981, 82. And somewhere out there on that tape, whoever has that tape, you will hear a lone voice crying out into the void, "Make it stop!" Because they were doing that drum solo, the Space Jam drum solo, and I'm tripping my face off. It's the 2 guys going at it, like, it's like, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I turned to my 2 friends just as I was in my full flowering of this little piece of blotter that they'd given me. First time and last time, by the way. And I turned to them and I said, I got to get out of here. And so I had, after saying, make it stop, I found my way out of the auditorium and made my way back to my dorm room, where I was convinced that everybody that I encountered on the quad as I was going back to my dorm room was covered in algae. And that's when I thought, it's probably lay off the acid for a while. And I eventually made my way back to my then girlfriend's dorm room, who lived on the 3rd floor. And I knocked on her door, and I opened the door, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, I just want to let you know that I'm tripping my face off right now. But I have to show you something. And she said, "What?" I said, "If I open this window, I'm pretty sure that if I jumped out the window, I would land on the ground, and I could bounce back up and land on the ledge. Watch." And she said, no, that's not going to happen. Wherever you are, Joan Tomsick, thank you for saving me. Because I was pretty sure that, like Flubber, I could jump out the window and bounce back up. And I did manage to enjoy many, many Dead concerts after that without the aid of that ever again. But that was the first and last time. Because when I took it, I remember, and I was working in a sandwich making shop. Right before I went to that, I was closing up, and I started to see that the broom handle that I was sweeping up the floor with started to turn into kind of a snake.
Oh my!
And that's when I thought, okay, things could really go tits up here tonight. So, and they did.
Oh, because you started it before.
I took it before I went to the show. Yes, my friend Gary Friedman, wherever you are, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Gary.
Handed me this. I took it. I was like, oh, a piece of paper. What the hell?
Let me just finish up.
Let me just finish up, and then think that the broom handle slowly started to, oh, okay, this is what we're in for. The show was great up until that point. It's the first time I've ever told that to anybody on film or?
Let me ask you about one of the songs on the obscure song section, which is Buried at Sea by MC 900 Foot Jesus from 1994. How did you come to that?
Titus Welliver, a fellow actor, friend of ours, very dear friend of mine, made me a mixtape as a buddy. He's like, he's like, your musical tastes they're just too safe. I'm going to turn you on to some of my shit. This was probably, I want to say 90. My timelines are all over the place.
Yeah.
But I want to say probably 94, 95, somewhere around there. We were young actors in LA, and we were roommates for a time. He made me several mixtapes, which I do still have. I didn't get rid of those.
Oh, that's
And
great.
on one of the mixtapes, this song was on there. MC 900 Foot Jesus. Great, and a lot of other great blues stuff. Chris Whitley, I think, is on there as one of the guys that I have on there. Great blues guitar player. But this is one of those, and he was in the middle of doing a play called Riff Raff at the time here in LA that was written by Lawrence Fishburne. Oh. And it was Titus, Lawrence Fishburne, and Heavy D was in it. So he was listening to a lot of Public Enemy and Heavy D and a lot of rap, which he turned me on to at the time. You look at me, you go, oh, this is a guy who really loves rap. And he's the guy that really turned me on to Titus, now middle-aged white guy from New Haven, Connecticut and Philly, really turned me on to the joys of rap and hip hop.
And this song,
they played this in the show as the audience was coming in. I think this is part of the show, and put this on the tape for me. And it's, to this day, I think this is kind of one of my pump up songs too. This is like, I just love this groove.
I love it. Okay, so let's listen to Buried at Sea. It's from the 1994 album One Step Ahead of the Spider, which is a great name.
Great title.
By MC 900 Foot Jesus. Ooh,
it's a good jam.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's almost sexy.
Yeah.
Let's move to a love song I want to ask you about, because I know this artist, Ricky Lee Jones.
Oh, yeah.
On Stewart's Coat from 1993.
Gorgeous song. I was all in, madly in love with Ricky Lee Jones, who used to go out with Tom Waits, and they were part of those circles together. Chucky Weiss, I used to go hear Chucky Weiss, who Chucky is the character in the song that she sings about. Chucky used to play around town in LA at the Largo and all these funky little clubs, Al's Bar downtown. So when I first moved out to LA, I would go see Chucky Weiss play in Al's Bar. So all of these characters, these kind of nighttime characters that they sang about in all these songs, Ricky Lee and Tom Waits were my intro into that whole world.
Wow.
So I got turned on to Ricky Lee Jones with that album, and was a fan, have been a fan ever since. To this day, I've seen her live a bunch too. So
we're doing like a speed round here.
Okay.
So let's talk about an artist that I love, and I love one of the albums, which is Steve Earle. Mm-hmm. And how did you come to two of them? One was a sadness song you like, which is Valentine's Day from 1996.
Yeah.
But so what's
Steve Earle? Steve Earle, I want to say, also is a Malcolm Gold selection for me. Malcolm Gold, my buddy from Hyde School in Maine, he used to send out this newsletter to alumni and with his favorite songs of the week and his favorite artists, and Steve Earle was on there. I was like, who's Steve Earle? Went out and bought some Steve Earle, and I was like, oh, I'm in. Love some Steve Earle.
Oh, he's got great Christmas in Washington. Do you know that? It's
yeah. He's one of my favorites. And again, probably there's something about like artists that are troubled and kind of broken that manage to make exquisite music. I mean, Tom Waits, Ricky Lee Jones, but Steve Earle has had famously history with drug addiction and stuff, and somehow manages to make just gorgeous, memorable music. So I'm a forever fan of Steve Earle.
Yeah, the tragic. His son was really talented and then passed.
Yes.
And okay, in our speed round, I'm just being greedy now.
Be greedy.
I don't know how I'm going to cut this down.
Be greedy. You cut it down.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
For our last little segment here, I'm going to give you three, and you're going to tell me, like, The More I See You, Julie London.
Anything by Julie London. Anything.
Jump then to
John Hyatt.
Feels Like Rain.
Feels Like a Rain. It's just sexy, sultry, gorgeous song that I've always loved. I think I want to say John Hyatt is another turn on from my buddy Titus. He's the one that turned me on to John Hyatt.
See, it's great. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of great friends that have turned me on to music that have just expanded my mind and stuff that I never would have found otherwise.
Let's end with an obscure song that you liked, was just Cherry Bomb by the Runaways from 1976. What? I don't know that.
Play it.
Okay.
Play it and you'll get it.
You want to
head with something.
Oh my God, what
Yeah.
a song. Did you know it at that time or did you come to it later?
I came to it later, and what I love about stuff like that and music like that is I think people are surprised when they meet me and they look at me like that would be something that I would like. I don't know why. Like, I think people have a certain, because I'm people's perception of me sometimes is like this guy from like
Another
a lot of
era.
my stuff. It's like
Yeah.
Bobby Darin and Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
and that's really the stuff that I dig and that I grew up on and that I love. But then there's stuff that just
You're a true music lover.
I'm a true
I think
music
true music lovers, I feel the same way if I can knight myself that. I knight you. Maybe that I should do it every episode. You are officially knighted.
Thank you.
A true music lover.
Thank you, sir.
But a true music lover can listen and go like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And just like,
Yeah.
like you said, like, I didn't know from Black Sabbath. He goes, well, play this first Black
I
Sabbath.
wouldn't know from Black. I don't know that I would know.
I
from
didn't
Black
either.
Sabbath. Yeah.
And he put on one and I was like, oh, this is from the 70s. So it was Zeppelin-y kind of.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was a 3-minute song. It was very bridge chorus, whatever. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is actually good. And in the right time, place, and space,
Yep.
I can
It
get
works.
I can get behind some. Now, may not play it again. I may not throw it on the radio or do when I'm driving.
Yeah.
But the time and place kind of for everything if
Yeah.
you love music.
There's a time and place for whatever your mood is in.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time in our car here in Los Angeles. And so I used to have mixtapes that were just driving music, that were just like great music to drive by. You're stuck on the 10 freeway for 3.5 hours, fucking put this on.
Yeah.
And if it'll calm your mind or pump you up to make you want to get out of there faster,
yeah.
whatever it is, road trip music. We find music that feeds our soul for whatever mood we're in.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about music.
This final question I would say then that comes to mind is when do you go to music? Are you listening to it at home in the car all the time? Do you
All
have
the time. All the time. I'll get up in the morning and make my coffee, and I'll say, Alexa, play me Nick Drake radio music, and so it'll play whatever is in the Nick Drake zone. I listen to music all day long.
in the car?
In the car. Usually the vinyl comes out at night if I'm having a scotch or something, and I'll break out the turntable and sit down and crack open a book. But I always have music on. Always have music on in the car.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is, the word you said, I think, is so right on. Nourishing. I mean, it really is nourishing in a way that I think we forget because it's always there and we have it, but how transformative, how it can switch you to another moment, take you to another mood. Man, this is so delightful. I so appreciate you driving out here. And,
You too, brother.
and
What a trip.
reconnecting, and it was a delight. Yeah.
Thanks, Paulie.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.